the Islamic Republic has lost so much, and United States hasn't lost much at all, like relatively, especially relative to other wars that United States has been in. And the I think it completely makes sense for President Trump to try. So first of all, this there is no deal. When people are talking about the deal, there is no deal. I don't. I feel like we have to keep reminding that the MOU is not a deal. We don't have a deal. The MOU is supposed to be a framework to maybe one day perhaps get to a deal, but this is not a deal. So there's no deal, and even if we had a deal, it doesn't mean that Americans could not go back to military operations, because you could know that the Islamic Republic will give them plenty of excuse to go back to military operations, right? Um, and so we a lot of people are looking at this MOU as if it's done and over with, and like this will, as once this is signed, it will somehow magically stop the Americans from going back to kinetic military operations, or somehow will stop Israel. It doesn't. This MOU has taken a lot from the Islamic Republic. I think you're underestimating what the infighting and the internal the humiliation does to the Islamic Republic. You think that I think you're thinking that because we are celebrating the infighting and the humiliation, you think that we are saying that, oh, somebody better would win. No, the infighting is weakening the regime. The infighting is weaken. It's not like, oh, the infighting is good for us because somebody will win and the new people will have now be better than the ones who have lost. Like, no, like that's a straw man. We never made that claim. The claim is that the infighting means that the resources of the Islamic Republic is directed against each other rather than against, us and United States and Israel. And we're watching that those resources, because there is, even within a tyranny, there is political capital that needs to be used. Whenever you have limited resources, political capital matters even within tyranny. And that political capital, instead of being centered against the Americans and Israelis and the Iranian people, is now being used against each other and is weakening the position of all of these people within the regime. The infighting makes every single one of these people lose face and lose legitimacy and support among the rest of the people, instead of having a united, front. Um, Everybody, like, instead of us. So here's the thing. One reason why the Islamic Republic is so weak right now is because it has so little support of the Iranian people. If they imagine if the Islamic Republic had 70% support, it would be a lot stronger today. So if going from 70% to 5% makes the Islamic Republic weaker, of course, going from 5% to 2% will make the Islamic Republic, it would be devastating to the Islamic Republic, right? And these 5% are the hardest to get to. And me and you will not be able to convince them that the Islamic Republic is no good. But when they do infighting, then their own people that they respect, they point each other's flaws, and that's the fastest way for us to go from 5% to 2%. And that is definitely very effective when it comes to taking out down the Islamic Republic, right? I mean, if the Islamic Republic at some point has to oppress and silent and keep in check 98% of the Iranians instead of only, I don't know, maybe 95% of them, that shit is not sustainable. That shit is not if it was if this was not a threat to the Islamic Republic wouldn't be spending most of its attention of trying to avoid that. For the past 20 years, if you look at the policies of the Islamic Republic, many times they sacrificed risks of uprising of the Iranian and risk of an external attack from United States and Israel, because their priority was not to lose their base of support. So losing their base of support is the greatest threat to the Islamic Republic, right? Because at the end of the day, the resources that are available to the Islamic Republic, different people are backstabbing each other and fighting against each other for those resources. If they were more united, all of those resources will go directly to keeping the Islamic Republic alive. But because there's infighting, they are trying to gain power. Instead of that, the focus is basically the same resources is being used. Many people within the Islamic Republic fear other people within the Islamic Republic more than they fear United States and Israel, and that is to our benefit. That is absolutely to our benefit, right? So you're saying that the MOU is removing the blockade the and we're getting nothing in return. I mean, we haven't seen the MOU yet, so we have to wait before we judge it. But if in return for the blockade we get the Strait of Hormuz open, that is another humiliating defeat for the Islamic Republic. Remember, the Islamic Republic has only three levers to pull. One is the enriched uranium. The other one is the Strait of Hormuz. The other one is Hezbollah. The Houthis are MIA, so we'll see if they become relevant at some point. But right now, it's just those three. So President Trump using the blockade to open the Strait of Hormuz and bringing, if oil prices come tumbling down, which they already have, it shows that the Islamic Republic, over thought too highly of how much the Strait of Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz, because remember, the Strait of Hormuz was supposed to bring the price of each barrel of oil to $200, right? It never did that. And with the blockade, because here's the thing, the Islamic Republic was always for years under the impression that if we ever get attacked, we could close the Strait of Hormuz like this and the world couldn't do anything about it. Using the blockade to get the Strait of Hormuz open will show that if it's easy for you to close the Strait of Hormuz, it's also easier for me to put a blockade on you. So this is not as important as a weapon as you thought it was. Like the Islamic Republic used to say that the Strait of Hormuz is bigger, as more of a deterrence than an atomic bomb. You saw that the United States economy didn't even feel like right at in the height of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, U.S. stock market was reaching all time highs, and not only that, the job reports came out and it was unbelievable. It shocked everybody in the United States. So the Islamic Republic was under the impression that closing the Strait of Hormuz would devastate the world economy. The world felt it, but it wasn't that big of a deal. And the U.S. blockade showed that they could put pressure on you. They could put more pressure on you than you could put pressure on the world economy. And if the blockade gets the Strait of Hormuz open, then the blockade has been successful in completely removing this illusion that the Strait of Hormuz is a big deal. So that would leave Hezbollah, that effectively has removed one out of three deterrence remaining deterrence capabilities of the Islamic Republic, removes it at the picture, right? The damage that we could do to your economy is so much more significant than what you could do with the Strait of Hormuz to the rest of us. Even with your pain tolerance, this is too big to deal, too great to this is too much pain to deal with, and you will eventually have to open the Strait of Hormuz every single time. If you do it again, we could come back here every single time. And by the way, we don't know if removing the blockade still means that the military assets is going to leave the region. So those are not the same thing. Removing the blockade could happen while the military assets is still in the region. It might not, but we have to judge that when that happens. But I do think that we are underestimating how important the enriched uranium is, because that's the best card that the Islamic Republic has, and that cannot be removed with military force. I mean, this prediction of mine came true, that United States, if they consider taking the enriched uranium by force, they will consider it and then they will push it aside, because the risk to American soldiers is way too high for this to be something that they want to do. And we saw that that's exactly what happened. The White House confirmed that they consider it, and President Trump didn't like it. He didn't want to have a Carter moment, as he says, right? So the only other two options is wait for the Islamic Republic to collapse or to do a deal. And I think that to trying a deal is the fastest way of doing it. Needs to be tried. And if you manage to get the enriched uranium with the deal, then you could go back to kinetic operations even after you made the deal. I think it makes sense for President Trump to try to put pressure on the Islamic Republic, do a deal, get the enriched uranium out, and then after that go back and kill them anyways, either by United States military power or Israel or both of them at the same time. But once you get the enriched uranium out, you have a lot more. There's a lot more you could do. Anyways, sorry that went for too long, but that was my answer. Who's next?
That's okay. We have 3 responses, and then we'd like to bump up our new friend Nets to be the last number 1. If we
Yes, okay, let's do that.
Okay. Sketch, you're up first.
Yes, a lot of that list just doesn't make sense. How are we back to square one? Square one was bombing them 13,000 targets. Are those 13,000 targets somehow coming back? And that's not even counting what Israel did. They probably hit a couple of thousand targets too. Like people are talking like this, like the blockade was square one. No, that was a different move. We can also go get these ships anywhere in the ocean. Like it is an ignoring of fact to say that nothing was gained. It is an ignoring of facts to say that we didn't get anything here. You know what we did get? We did get every nation on earth to start looking for oil elsewhere. We got every insurance company to notice, maybe you shouldn't insure ships going here. Maybe insurance should be cheaper going to America to get that oil, even if the trip is longer, so much cheaper that it's worth the trip. That's what we're doing. There's a lot of things happening with onshoring, with friendshoring, with how we deal with transport, with how we deal with a lot of things that are at an economic level that are not being seen. And you can't just ignore that everything we destroyed is still destroyed. That's like ignoring facts for a narrative.
Okay, Uncle Jeff, please.
$21,000 targets being destroyed, the regime being decapitated, the Ayatollah being killed, his son being turned into a fucking zombie, the regime's military defense industrial base being flattened, and IRGC and besieged leadership being crushed. Right, that happened. Here's the main thing that we've got that is in both the region, our bases, our forces, our Israeli and Gulf state allies, and Iranian people. This is what we want. We short-circuited you have a second short-circuiting of the chain of escalation that would have led to the regional use of nuclear weapons, caused by and underwritten by the Mullah regime readying to mass launch solid fuel ballistic missiles, very much with a high degree of probability being married with biological warheads, along with drones against our bases, our Gulf state allies, and our Israeli allies. Even though Israel's Iron Dome or integrated air and missile defense system is top notch, there would have been leakers. Israel's stated policy, if it is hit with weapons of mass destruction of any type, is to treat it as a nuclear attack requiring a full retaliatory response. Read Samson Protocol. What that means, and Israel will be right to do it because it has no strategic depth, right? They have to do that. That means you will have nuclear weapons being detonated inside Iran. The loss of Iranian civilians, if that were to occur, would be in the millions. It doesn't mean that there isn't, still work to be done. It doesn't mean that there isn't things that we should still be pursuing. I'm saying those are real hard victories. Those are real hard-based victories you can point to. So, that's the second time President Trump has stopped an escalatory war in the Middle East in under a year. I think people forget that in all the hullabaloo, and that's the hullabaloo is not defined by the unbelievable suffering of Iranian people and or the gallantry of Iranian resistance. I'm saying all the would-be prognosticators that are, co-opting that misery to serve as a backdrop for their bullshit. So those are very real victories. I want to actually give a shout out to Sophie on the stopping the escalatory war, because even though, she mentioned it in the chat, it's something I wrote about. And it's one of the after action reviews.
Yeah, but one last line before I add this, guys. Like, I don't think people appreciate how the Islamic Republic sitting at the table, signing an agreement with the people who killed their supreme leader and his family and got him stuck in a fridge for more than 100 days before they could bury him. Instead of getting the great revenge that they promised, having to sit at the table and making them sign a paper with the so-called murderers of their supreme leader, I don't think people understand the level of damage that does to the Islamic Republic. Okay. Wait, we got, let me just read one super chat saying, given that IRGC will have money again, will they will they be able to pay Basijis, Hamas, Hezbollah, etc.? How long do you think it will take before they are back to full strength? I mean, I don't think. I mean, United States or at least Israel is not going to allow that. The Islamic Republic has lost a lot more money than whatever they can gain from this right now, and I think they are a lot weaker than they have ever been. And even if you remove the blockade, they're not going to be able to go back to where they were before. I think the damage is unrepairable. And thank you so much, Zipgun, for the super chat. And then we got Antoff became a member, and Gosaya Farrell just became a give us a super chat. And Hamid is saying, thank you, Hamid, for the super chat, saying, I'm someone who always nagging about Trump's approach towards the IGC. I hope Trump has plans for regime change because that is what the Iranian people want. Well, Hamid, I think that's what we should like. That's what the regime change should be our plan. What President Trump has done makes our job easier, but I think that the plan for regime change is the Iranian people's plan and Israel's plan for good reasons. And whatever America does to weaken the Islamic Republic, we appreciate that. But one way or another, we continue fighting against the Islamic Republic. And I appreciate you being flexible with, trying to consider other positions as well. That's really good. Okay, so who's next?
Okay, so we are going to ask no twos, please, for these last two. These are questions directly for Armin. Halda, please come up. She'd like to talk about Trump behaving unethically.
Thought that we were going to do Nets first, since he's new.
Oh yeah, let's do Nets and then Halda. Okay.
Yeah, because I can wait for another time if needed.
Okay.
Okay, I'm grateful to get to speak. I'll try to be quick. None of us here are governments, and it's very easy to feel small compared to our governments and to feel there's nothing we can do. And most of the discussion here has been about how smart and stupid our governments are. But it gives me really a lot of hope, the existence of the Iranian underground, who are heroes, who are not part of government now, who are fighting to bring down the regime. And in fact, it's one reason that I wanted to join this channel, because people in that underground speak here sometimes. And so the question I have is, what can we as individuals do to help them? And I don't know the answer to this myself. I don't have any way myself directly of having contact, but at least at this moment, I'm suddenly in contact with Armin. Is there any way I can give Armin money and that will cause guns to be smuggled to the resistors in Iran? And maybe there are subjects that we should not discuss in detail in public, but in any case, are there direct ways that we can help the Iranian underground?
So well, first of all, thank you, Nitz. I completely agree with you. There's too much like, oh my God, why they do this, why they do that, and less discussion on what can we do, right? And like, especially on my Persian channel, I keep encouraging people to focus more. Like, it's interesting and important to talk about why Trump did this, why Bibi did this, why Prince Reza Pahlavi did that. But I think that I asked them how many times, for every question, for every time you ask, oh, why did Trump did this, why did Bibi did that, for how many times did you ask, like, what am I doing? Like, what am I exactly doing for fighting the Islamic Republic? Are you an observer of powers beyond your control, or are you an active participant in getting to a place where you could actually choose your own destiny and fight, liberate Iran, right? And so I really appreciate you saying that. And I am doing certain things right now with the Iranians. On there are certain things that I can't even talk about it on my Persian channel, right? So I am doing certain things that, I mean, YouTube would not even appreciate me saying that I'm involved with. But the way I want to set it up, these are people underground in Iran, and it involves drones, right? Um, but I don't want any of it to go through me, okay? Because if it goes through me, first of all, I'm going to probably get into a lot of legal trouble, right? So I'm trying to create a direct, I'm going to basically get proof of concept, and then create a direct connection between people who want to help and the people who are involved in this. So none of it goes through me. But also it needs to be based on, video proof of things that are happening, right? Because um, I don't want to be responsible for people supporting something that ended up being nothing at all, right? Um, so to get it right, I'm trying to, like, it's going to take time to get it right, but I am in contact with people in Iran, and we're getting somewhere with it, right? We are getting somewhere with it, and we do need to have a strategy session here, like sometimes, but not something that is going to be recorded on school or anything like that. So, um, but yeah, I'll be in. I'll let you go, because remember, I always wanted to make sure that our group here is not just a discussion group. We call it a discussion group so that people who are interested in only having discussions don't feel like they need to be, I don't know, like, um activists to be here. So it's not a barrier for people who are only interested in this discussion, but like for every 100 person that comes and joins here for discussions, I'm hoping one person will become part of the group that we're creating that wants to actually do things, and we figure out the best way to do, like, not just discuss politics but actually do politics. The whole point of the vision I have is for Liberty Politics to be a place where we find the main obstacles to liberty globally, and try to find the most efficient ways that each individual could participate in fighting that obstacle. And I think focusing on the Islamic Republic as one of the main obstacles of liberty is pretty good. I do want us to eventually be more diversified and, focus on CCP and Putin and other obstacles to liberty. I consider United States, Israel, Ukraine, and the Iranian people to be forces for liberty, and the Islamic Republic, CCP, North Korea, Putin, and the proxies of the Islamic Republic, and all of these to be like the obstacles of liberty. But I know I'm biased because I'm Iranian, but we are right now. We're most of our focus is on the Islamic Republic. But yes, more doing and less. I mean, I don't want to do less discussion, but just in top of the discussion, I want us to actually be do things rather than just talk about politics. Does that even address what you're saying? That's like, did I even?
I very much appreciate that response. The only thing I can say in my very smallness is that if there were anything ever I could do to help, you know, call on me. And just I wish it were more ways for people to help.
I mean, there one so one thing, there will be more ways, but other than just being here and supporting us like this, I do suggest that looking at Prince Reza Pahlavi's website, Irana Pasmgirim, there's ways to support there as well. So I'll put the link to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll put the link to that in our chat over here if it works. My name is Armin Navabi. I'm an Iranian political analyst with decades of experience fighting the Islamic regime inside and outside of Iran. Make sure you follow me for more, and also make sure you join our discussion group. I'm there almost every single day. Come talk to me there and the rest of the people there in our group calls. It's a great place to meet and talk to people who like talking about politics.
The link is in the description and or in the bio. You could also get there by scanning the QR code on the screen. See you there.